All right, so war criminal extraordinaire Dick Cheney decided to crawl out of whatever hellhole he is currently residing in order to do a 1-minute advertisement for his daughter, Liz Cheney, as she is currently facing a pretty significant right-wing Republican primary attempt by a Trump-backed candidate. So I wanted to go ahead and jump into this clip where he not only defends Liz Cheney, but also takes a couple pot shots at Trump directly. So let's go ahead and jump into this clip, and then I'll put it a little bit more in context for you guys.
In our nation's 246-year history, there has never been an individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump. He tried to steal the last election using lies and violence to keep himself in power after the voters had rejected him. He is a coward. A real man wouldn't lie to his supporters. He lost his election, and he lost big. I know it, he knows it, and deep down, I think most Republicans know it. Lynn and I are so proud of Liz for standing up for the truth, doing what's right, honoring her oath to the Constitution, when so many in our party are too scared to do so. Liz is fearless. She never backs down from a fight. There is nothing more important she will ever do than lead the effort to make sure Donald Trump is never again near the Oval Office. And she will succeed. I am Dick Cheney. I proudly voted for my daughter. I hope you will too.
I'm Liz Cheney, and I approve this message.
Right. Okay. So there's a lot that you could say about that. I think 3 things that stood out to me initially on this. We'll start with the last one because I think that's, a kind of a tangential point. But I have heard some rumors. Now take this with a grain of salt because, we're talking about just rumors here. But I have heard rumors that Liz Cheney, because of how much she hates Donald Trump and because she is likely to lose her Republican primary right now in Wyoming and lose her seat in the House of Representatives, that there is some potential chance that she decides to basically run in 2024 as an independent or something and try to basically tank Donald Trump's chances at winning back the White House. So if she decided to do that and just go off on her own and do that explicitly to hurt Donald Trump in that election, that would be a really interesting dynamic, and I would love to see how that would play out. Obviously, I have no problem infighting between Liz Cheney and the rest of the Republican Party. I think that would be absolutely fantastic and entertaining to say the least. But again, those are just rumors, so take that with a grain of salt. Now we get to a little bit more of the substantive things that were in that clip. So number 1, at the beginning, he says that Donald Trump lied to his supporters, which is 100% true. That's a valid criticism of Donald Trump. He lies like an absolute sociopath. But coming from somebody like Dick Cheney, kind of a little bit of a hollow criticism there, right? Somebody like Dick Cheney, whose entire career was characterized by massive lies, not only just lies about elections, but also lies that cost millions of lives with the war on terror, the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean, he was really the behind-the-scenes architect, the puppet master that was pulling a lot of the strings in the George W. Bush administration and led us into a lot of those wars. So the idea that this guy is credible to call out somebody else's lies is absolutely fucking ridiculous at face value. So that point is completely hollow, but it also is, again, still a valid criticism of Donald Trump, which is kind of like the underlying point of all of this that I'm trying to make, is that somebody like Liz Cheney, somebody like Dick Cheney, yeah, they're right on this one specific issue of Donald Trump or not being in favor of Donald Trump becoming an instant dictator, but when it's coming from people like this, it just completely rings hollow because we could get into so many other things. There was another point that Dick Cheney brought up there where he was saying that Donald Trump is not abiding by his oath to the Constitution, which again is 100% true as a critique of Donald Trump, but it's also 100% true as a critique of somebody like Liz Cheney, or especially Dick Cheney, who violated the Constitution left and right when he was under George W. Bush. I mean, this is a guy who did torture programs in the Middle East and helped bolster Guantanamo Bay and the illegal unconstitutional detention of people who were never given their fair day at court. So I mean, the idea that this is a guy who is standing up for the Constitution, he pissed and shat on the Constitution every single goddamn day that he was in power under the Bush administration. And I think the funniest part of all of this, which is somehow something that is completely omitted from mainstream discussions about the Cheney family, is that the entire reason why Dick Cheney ended up in the White House is because of an actual stolen election in 2000 when the George W. Bush administration, basically because of, this whole back and forth with the hanging chads and the ballots in Florida, came to power as the president when Al Gore should have actually won the election had the ballots been fully counted. So the only reason he ever ended up in the White House was because of a successfully stolen election. Now, granted, it was kind of a different stolen election because they did it through somewhat more legitimate means and did it through somewhat legal avenues. And Donald Trump did it by trying to sick a mob on the Capitol building and stop the certification of the electoral votes. They're different in character, but at the end of the day, Donald Trump tried to sloppily steal an election, and Dick Cheney and George W. Bush actually successfully and in a much more coherent and legal way did steal an election. So even on like the most fundamental premise of why liberals are coming out and praising Liz Cheney or Dick Cheney or George W. Bush in a moment like this and pretending as if they should be the embodiment of what the Republican Party should strive to be or strive to look like, even at the most fundamental level of stealing an election and their opposition to Trump trying to steal an election, even on that, there's no real substance here, because again, he only ended up in the White House because of a fucking stolen election. But there's so many other things that you could talk about with Dick Cheney in terms of why nobody should give a single solitary shit about what he has to say about anything. I mean, if anything, you should listen to what Dick Cheney has to say and then do the exact opposite of that, especially when it comes to things like foreign policy. But let's just jog our memories on some of his greatest hits when he was in power. They point out here in this Atlantic article, I'm not going to get into all of the details, but I'll link it down below if you want to go read through this whole piece. It's a great reminder on some of the most atrocious things that he was responsible for. But number one, we start off here with the war in Iraq. Again, one of the biggest architects of that war. He had direct ties with a corporation like Halliburton, direct ties to the military-industrial complex, and made, who knows how many millions of dollars off of this war. Again, also the torture programs, which were unconstitutional and illegal in every way imaginable. Also illegally and unconstitutionally spying on innocent Americans. You had his ties to Halliburton again. You had the situation with Ahmed Chalabi, which you can go and read again in this article about the details behind that. Also instrumental in detaining innocents for years on end at Guantanamo Bay and in black sites in the Middle East. He also had his radical view of executive power and funneling much more power, especially on foreign policy, up to the presidency. So they also add down here unprincipled efforts to maximize personal power. So listen, I mean, we could get into so many different aspects of who Dick Cheney was when he was in power and how he had his own authoritarian tendencies. He had his own, rejection of constitutional precedents and was gutting the Constitution every chance that he had the opportunity to do so. I mean, so many different things that you could say about Dick Cheney and how awful of a person he was and how nobody should be listening to whatever he says about anything. But on top of that, you also have Liz Cheney, who this ad is for and who Democrats are still to this day propping up as, again, the embodiment of what Republicans should strive to be. But even somebody like Liz Cheney, as pointed out here by this Cowboys Daily article, Liz Cheney voted more with Trump than even somebody like Matt Gaetz did. Okay, so Matt Gaetz, a completely far-right, insane Trump lunatic, okay, even more than Matt Gaetz, Liz Cheney was supportive of Donald Trump's agenda. So again, this is just one issue, one tiny issue on whether or not the President of the United States, Donald Trump, should be able to do a violent insurrection and a coup of the U.S. government. That is the only tiny specific point where Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney are correct in their criticisms here. But on every single other aspect of this, whether you want to talk about abortion rights, LGBTQ rights, whether you want to talk about economic issues or foreign policy issues, the Cheneys are just as much to the right as Donald Trump on all of those different issues, if not further to the right, especially on things like foreign policy, and they agree with him on all of the underlying substance of what he represented, including his authoritarian tendencies, just up until the point where you're doing a violent attack on the Capitol building. That is the only very narrow, specific circumstance where they have a disagreement with Donald Trump. So again, the idea that you're going to portray this person as something that Republicans should strive to be like, you're basically just asking for Donald Trump minus the actual legitimate insurrection and coup attempt. It's just completely fucking ridiculous to prop these people up as if they deserve a single ounce of credit. And it honestly undermines, at least in my opinion, the legitimacy of something like the January 6th trials to have somebody like Liz Cheney be the face of this when, again, she has no credibility on pushing back against what Donald Trump actually represented and what he did when he was in power, but also doesn't really have that credibility because, again, her fucking dad came to the White House because of a stolen election. So, I mean, on all different fronts, just completely fucking ridiculous. But they also point out here from Yahoo News that she's down apparently, and this is like a month old, so I don't know where it's at right now, but she was down at one point 22 points to her Trump-backed candidate here, Harriet Hageman. So, I mean, it's not looking too good for Liz Cheney in Wyoming, and it's honestly not that surprising why. I mean, she's trying to get Democrats to show up in the primary primary and vote for her and donate to her and support her. Absolutely nobody should do that in any capacity whatsoever. Nobody is going to miss Liz Cheney if she's out of the Congress or the House of Representatives. Nobody should miss her for a single solitary second. But regardless, she's definitely facing significant pushback from within the Republican Party. She's also should be facing significantly more pushback from the Democratic Party because, listen, Nancy Pelosi likes to come out, Joe Biden likes to come out as well, constantly preach about the need for a strong Republican Party. But if this is what a strong Republican Party looks like, then it's everything that you hate about Donald Trump minus just this one specific narrow instance where you do a violent and unsuccessful coup attempt. And listen, if Donald Trump had been successful on January 6th and they did somehow manage to pull off the swapping of electors, I don't even think that she would have come out in opposition to this, okay? I think that she made a political calculation where she thought that this is going to look bad for the Republican Party. I'm going to, carve out my little niche here, slightly to the left of Donald Trump on this one specific issue, and it will pay off politically. Now, obviously that backfired for her. The rest of the Republican base rallied around Donald Trump. They rallied around the Republican insurrectionists, and she's obviously been paying the consequences for this. So at the end of the day, stop fucking rehabilitating these absolute war criminals.